For most of my life, architecture, design, and building weren't a part of my vocabulary. I had never really thought much about the impact that the built space could have, but then a treehouse changed everything. These are my daughters and one of their favorite childhood spots. It was the brainchild of my husband, Andy, who, ever the optimist, thought he could build it himself despite not having done anything like that before. But the even greater challenge to his vision, and one that he refused to acknowledge, was that he was nearing the end of his years-long battle with cancer that started just after the birth of our second daughter. The week after my husband's passing, our friends and neighbors took his vision and built what I can only describe as the world's most bougie treehouse. It was a creation built out of love and purpose, and I watched in humble awe as what had been a few lines hastily sketched on a paper a month before transformed into something profound through the hands of so many working collectively. This was the first time that I had experienced the power of community coming together to create a truly transformational space. You see, since childhood, my passion wasn't for the built environment, but was for animals of all shapes and sizes. I grew up with almost every type of pet you can imagine in my suburban home, from the usual cats and dogs to the more exotic rabbits, mice that got loose in the house a lot, much to my mother's chagrin, hamsters, and even chickens and quail. I was lucky enough to turn this passion into a career, and for the last 30 years, I've been studying and protected one of our closest living relatives, gorillas. These creatures continue to amaze and awe me on a daily basis. And perhaps that's not so surprising since they share 98% of our DNA and some of what we admire most in our own species. Like us, gorillas form lifelong friendships and they mourn the loss of family members. And like us, they take care of their most vulnerable, just as my community did for me and my girls. What I didn't expect was that design would end up becoming an essential aspect of my work with the gorillas. When Dian Fossey started her groundbreaking studies in the 1960s, she lived deep in the cold, misty forests of Rwanda in a rustic camp at 10,000 feet elevation. She spent 18 years at that site, which she named Karasoke, after the two volcanoes, Mount Karasimbi and Mount Basoki, that surrounded it, until her murder in 1985. Karasoke continued in its original form for another 8 years after her death, until it was destroyed during the Rwandan genocide. After that, our operational base had to be moved outside the forest, and we set up in a town about 15 miles away, first working out of a house, then two houses with the wall in between them taken down, and then eventually into an office building. Now, while this was a huge upgrade in terms of the amount of space we had, the quality of that space was less than ideal. We were very far from the forest and the communities we served, and sandwiched between a very busy road on Main Street and a sports stadium. So our meetings were regularly drowned out by huge 18-wheelers passing by on their way to Congo or Uganda, or the cheers associated with the stadium's near-daily sporting events. We had one room for hosting the hundreds of Rwandan students that would come each year for scientific training, and our only lab was a converted kitchen without proper ventilation. When you walked down that hallway, you were greeted by the odors of the forest, but not the good ones. Fast forward to 2017, and as our organization hit its 50th year anniversary, we decided that moving forward with a new purpose-built home was a priority. And that's when we met Mass. As scientists and conservation practitioners, we were focused on the function of this new home. We wanted more classrooms, more labs, hopefully some student housing, and a location that would bring us closer to the park. A research center that was probably modeled more after Diane's mountain camp than anything particularly aesthetic or multifunctional. But from day one, Mass challenged us to think beyond function to form and impact. As we sat together, we worked through questions about the purpose of this facility beyond being just a workspace. What more could it enable us to achieve in our mission of helping people and saving gorillas? How could it help us tell the story of why conserving gorillas is about so much more than saving a species, that ultimately it's about saving ourselves? We set the goal of making the campus a global gateway to conservation, a place where stakeholders of all types could gather, engage, and be transformed. As we neared the end of the design process, Mass approached us with an intriguing proposition. Could they not just design the campus, but also construct the campus? Because they had not yet taken on a build project of this magnitude, it was something we spent a lot of time discussing internally as well as with the Mass team. And I'm really proud and honestly thrilled to say that in the end, we embraced our core value of courage and we took the leap. Because we saw how working together could make this project so much more abundant and ensure impact not only on completion, but throughout the entire process. We set and achieved our lofty aspirations together, maximizing local impact through the creations of thousands of jobs and infusing over $13 million into the Rwandan economy, providing more than 530 critical skills trainings that would serve the employees long after they finished on the project, promoting equity by committing to female leadership and workforce participation. And as you've seen so beautifully in Sierra's talk in the video, restoring biodiversity through planting more than 250,000 native plants. Now, I know I'm a bit biased, but I have to say that the result is truly spectacular. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous campus that we are so honored has been recognized with multiple design awards. And we've traded the noises and views of our concrete jungle office building for a real jungle, surrounded by the sounds of frogs and birds, with views of the stunning Virunga volcanoes that we are working so hard to save as our inspiration and backdrop. It's transformed our work, providing us with the space to collaborate, convene, train, and lean into the communities that surround the park. But perhaps the most surprising result, at least for me, was how it has transformed the perception of conservation and its value. The campus has become a national and international destination, welcoming more than 120,000 visitors since its opening in 2022. As a reference point, at our previous facility, we had maxed out at 7,000 visitors a year. Every single visit is an opportunity to inspire curiosity, ignite passion, and educate about the importance of our natural world. As we become increasingly removed from nature and the twin crises of biodiversity loss and climate change loom larger every single day, the chance to showcase the power and value of conservation has never been more important. Because ultimately, conservation is as much about people as it is about animals. And it is as much about human futures as it is about wildlife futures. We've been open for 3.5 years now, and we've trained thousands of early career African scientists, building the pipeline of conservation biologists who will carry this work forward. We've hosted hundreds of critical stakeholder meetings in a space where partners feel valued, inspired, and ready to collaborate. We've engaged tens of thousands of community members around the importance of conservation, from primary school nature clubs to village elders to government leaders. Because it's not just those of us on the front line who need to do the work, everyone has a role to play in conservation. And now we're expanding our vision, eager to think about what more can we do? How can we inspire and engage more people? How do we enhance the critical trainings and convenings and conversations that are needed to protect our planet and ensure a thriving future for our own species? And how do we stretch to lean into issues beyond our traditional expertise, areas like regenerative agriculture and agroforestry, climate resiliency, and forest restoration? These are important the world over, but especially in the areas where we work, where people's lives are so directly dependent on a healthy, functioning ecosystem. And yet these ecosystems are collapsing and disappearing. And so our big, bold vision is to build on the successes of this campus, doubling its size, but infinitely increasing its impact through tackling the tough issues that we must address if we are to protect, nurture, and sustain thriving ecosystems for generations to come. I often say that if you would have told me in graduate school when all I wanted to do was watch animals, that was going to be my job, that I would be building a campus, a multi-million-dollar campus, halfway around the world during a global pandemic when I couldn't even get on site, I would have said you were crazy. But this project has been one of the greatest joys of my career, not just for what we produced, but for how we produced it. The partnerships, the impact, the merging of visions, Mass's vision for what the built space can achieve, and our vision to ensure a future for gorillas and our planet. It is proof that the sum is so much greater than the parts when we work together. And the possibility for what comes next as we expand the campus, the difference that we can make is truly thrilling. For me, it all circles back to the lessons I learned watching through tears as a treehouse took form in my backyard. To what happens when a community comes together around a vision, when stick figures on paper become a place of change, and when we build something together so beautiful and transformative that none of us could build alone. Thank you.